Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And my gosh, is this an amazing episode? Today is March the 6th. And I gotta share what happened to me on March 4th, a day that will forever be etched not only in my memory, but on my heart. So my little granddaughter, whose due date was March 23rd. So she had a few more weeks, we thought, before she was going to make her entrance, but she decided to come on March 4th. And my daughter had planned on doing a home birth, a water birth, and we had the water pool and everything ready to go, been trained by the midwife. And what we were doing, my main role was to be focused on her son, who's almost 3 years old. And anyways, the midwife was going to come. She lives about an hour away, and we are in the mountains in Colorado, and it's winter season. So anyways, my daughter's water broke at 12:45 on Sunday night, the 3rd. And on Monday morning at 1:16 in the morning, I got a call that, Mom, this is happening. So I get there, and we're very close. I'm like 10 houses over. So I ran to her house, got dressed and ran at 1:15 in the morning, snow pouring like crazy. And I'm running to her house, and I can hear the sounds of a mother giving birth. And I run upstairs, literally as I arrived, I'm taking my clothes off, dropping my coat, my hats, my gloves, my winter coat, taking off my winter boots and running up to the upstairs as quickly as I could. And when I got there, it was like clear. Okay, this baby is coming. And the midwife is on the phone saying, I can't, there's no way I'm going to make it there. And so my son-in-law was with my daughter in the bathroom, and he was like, okay, let's get you to the room. We got to get you on the floor. And she says, okay, this baby is coming. So we walk her to the bedroom, get her down on all fours, and I'm at the back side and he's in the front. He had just laid her hands down on the floor, and she says, this baby is coming. So I'm looking, and sure enough, I see a head. So I grabbed the nearest blanket that I can, and I said to him, you got to call. Well, before I even said that, the baby was coming out so quickly. So I wrapped the baby in a blanket. The shoulders were coming. So I grabbed the shoulders, baby comes out, and then he helps Mom get on her back. And I said to him, go call Shauna, the midwife. So he goes to get the phone and calls Shauna, comes back and says, Shauna, we have a baby. So we pretty much have pieced this together. I think 1:35, Ellie was born. So 20 minutes after I got the call to be there. So I literally walked in the door, ran upstairs, helped to birth this baby, deliver this baby. Absolutely amazing. And then it was 2 hours before the midwife was there to be able to cut the cord. So in the meantime, we're helping my daughter through some crazy birthing pains, and she has no pain medication. And we've got this precious little baby who is just so perfect, came out so perfect. And Eric and I are just in awe of this. And of course, he's the dad, and he's got the emotions of the dad and his wife who's in pain. And it was just absolutely surreal. Then we had to help get the placenta out of her. So when she was having a really hard time pushing that out, but finally it comes out. So we've got, the placenta and the cord and the baby, and having to manage all of that. Anyways, it was just one of the most amazing experiences. It's been life altering. It has put everything that my spiritual journey has been leading me to in absolute clear perspective, clearer than anything I've ever experienced before. And I'll tell you how powerful this was not only for me personally, but for the work that I know now is really what I'm here to do. And Course in Miracles tells us, we have made up this world. We have imagined that there is a separate world and we're separate from God. And we have that insane idea that maybe we are God and God is not God, and that we are the God, from a very immature perspective. Like a bratty 2-year-old would say, I do it all by myself. I know everything. Like a high schooler would think, a teenager would think that they know everything that there's to be known in the world. That kind of an arrogance that I know everything and God doesn't know anything. And that's what the ego is all about. And for thousands of years, people with that kind of arrogance have been believing that we know better than God and that we are right and God is not. And we have created this insanity that we're separate from one another because we don't know what God is. So we cannot understand that we cannot be separate from one another. And the whole world that we have been perceiving, with its laws, its greeds, its regulations, its suffering, its hurting others, its selfishness, all of those things is possible because we don't know who we really are. We have created an idea of what things are with a mind that is immature and doesn't really know the truth. And you add to that how religion has taught us lies about God, that it's a punishing God, that it's a God to be feared. We've got governments that have colluded with the churches to basically keep people in fear and keep people paying taxes and keep people believing that there's a king or there's a conqueror or whatever. Somebody else knows better than we do, or a president that knows more. School systems have been built deliberately. I mean, when you begin to understand, you got to go back far enough to see how the delusion got created and has snowballed into an entire lie about life and God and who we are. So anyways, this journey that the Course in Miracles has helped me be able to understand how to unwind my mind from the lies and return myself to the truth is about training my mind to, first of all, get curious, be willing to not know everything, be willing to admit, maybe I am wrong. And in that humbleness of, what, maybe I'm wrong, you begin to realize, not maybe, I have been completely wrong about everything. That allows us then to birth ourselves anew. We have to raise ourselves up because we had unconscious parents who taught us normal according to the ego. That takes us away from natural according to God. And then when we begin to be humble enough to become honest enough to accept that we cannot possibly know everything. How can one person know everything? It's not possible. I mean, there's so much to be known. One person cannot know everything. So you can start there by recognizing there's got to be more. And then you happen to have something like the Course in Miracles that teaches you the exact truth that Jesus taught 2,000 years ago, but that truth got distorted. So he had to channel this information to give us truth again. And hoping that 2,000 years later, maybe we have humbled ourselves enough to receive this truth. And the Course in Miracles trains our mind into accepting the truth. And then you realize everything of the ego was a lie. Absolute. We have blocked our ability to love, to be our natural selves, because we have lies that tell us what's normal. That blocks the truth of God within us. So being able to be there present to the birthing of this child, I could feel the presence of God. I could feel the peace in my heart. Eric said he was so nervous. I didn't see that. Maybe I didn't see that because I wasn't feeling any nervousness. I just knew that I was called there to do something. I have been cultivating trust And I don't ask, I don't question, because I don't know what anything is for. I am just there. And I am under no laws but God's. And if this baby is coming, it's coming. And if the creative source of all that is, it has created an intelligence in a woman's body to create a child and know to birth it when it's supposed to birth it and know exactly what to do, I can't stop any of that. So to humble myself, because I know God is the creative source of all that is, and I am here to co-create with God, but doing God's will, not Laina's ego's will. I was just in the flow of the moment. To flow with life, you've got to be in a place of acceptance. And you've got to be at a place of reason that you know God knows more than you, because you've done the work to stop thinking we know it all. Then we receive intuitive guidance. So here I am in a place of acceptance, connecting to God's intelligence, basically saying, not my will, but yours be done. Tell me, what is it that I need to do? What is it that I need to know? What is it that needs to happen right here? So my mind was totally quiet, and I was in a state of just beingness. And in that beingness, this beautiful baby, perfect as can be, comes how it's going to come. My work was to be present, to be a witness to perfection, to be a witness to what is natural, to allow what is unfolding to unfold. And as I witness this mother's love for this baby, this father's love for his baby and his wife, just be in awe of the expansion of creation. Because when we move to a place where we are feeling love, where we are experiencing joy, where we are truly feeling the peace of God, that's what enlightenment is all about. You can't help but expand. And this sweet little family is expanding. This being that is a soul, an expression of God, wants to come to this planet. It knows before it incarnates the family it's picked for a reason, the grandmother that it's picked, in my case, abuela. That's what my grandson calls me. Abue, to be exact, because he couldn't say abuela. That was a mouthful for a little baby. So he just calls me Abue. And my little granddaughter, Ellie, I'm sure she will call me Abue or some version of that. This family is expanding because love is expanding, because it is God's will. It is natural to expand. And to witness all of this happening so beautifully, so unscripted, so just naturally, helped me realize how many things we have made normal. Like we got to rush to the hospital. We've got to have a sterile environment to have babies in. I know I had 2 of them in a sterile environment. You've got to prod and poke and shoot things up in these little babies. You know, the minute that they're born, perfection comes out, and man-made or man with its own ideas that I know better pumps these little babies with chemicals, with things that are not natural. They're man-made. And I'm witnessing, oh my gosh, nature knows best. And nature is God expressing itself in natural ways. But what we have converted into normal is the ego's ways. In so many cases, the ego has created its own idea of what normal should be. And we've all been following the rules of normal, following the laws of ego. And of course, the Miracles tells us that we've got to make a decision to be under no laws but God's. And you know what's so amazing? This little child being born right now, here we are, 2024, at a time when humanity is shifting. We are ascending. Enough of us are waking up and saying, wait a second, why do we follow all these man-made rules? Why do we follow all of these man-made rules by men and women who are greedy, who are selfish, who really are only interested in what's best for them, who don't really care about what's natural? As a matter of fact, say that so many things that are natural are wrong, are evil, are unlawful. Who gave them permission to decide? Well, this is where we have to take a look and say we did. We as a humanity that is awakening has to realize that what has become normal, we agreed to allow to be normal. So there is a big time of reckoning. an opportunity to look at what we have contributed to, albeit in our ignorance, and be able to admit, you know what? I did not know what I did not know. I've made mistakes. Because part of what we were reading last week, here we are still in chapter 30 in A Course in Miracles in the text. Chapter 30 is about a new beginning. So here we are, a new beginning, a new child is being birthed. I'm beginning a new chapter in my life because I've never experienced anything like this before. And this has altered me because I spend so much of my time with my clients, helping them move from being an adult that got indoctrinated and got totally, completely contracted into a very small idea of who we are, because that's normal. You're your name, you are where you live, you are your career, you are, your net worth is your self-worth. And this is who you are, a very small idea of who you are, a very tiny, crazy idea to think that you, me, the children of the creative source created to create have contracted. So I spend a lot of my time helping my clients move up, let go of beliefs, look at limitations, question those limitations, become willing to get honest. Those limitations hurt us. They box us in. They create suffering. They create such a constricted possibility of who we are, and we live our lives basically kind of thinking that that's okay, and we just go along until we die, and that's it. But then we, as the souls that we are, incarnate again to give us another opportunity. Ellie is another opportunity to do life differently. The beings that have been born come in to move upwards. Those of us who've been here a while, well, we got brought down into small-minded thinking, gave our power away all willingly. Most of us, nobody held a gun to our head and said, you've got to do what the church says, you've got to do what the school says, you got to do what the government says. We just got trained into that. And then, of course, the fear was that if we don't do it that way, we're going to get in trouble. So we acquiesced and gave our power away, all voluntarily. To ascend and come back to the truth of who we are, we must voluntarily be willing to question what we thought was normal until we arrive back to what is natural, what is God's will. And God wills for us to only expand. God's will through Ellie, through Ryder, my grandson, is through you and through me. But I'll speak specifically to this little child, is to enter through a loving portal. A mom and a dad who love each other. And I'm not saying that two women can't co-create a relationship and have a baby, or that two men who love each other and want to have a child can't adopt a child. I'm not saying that that's not okay, because anything that is loving is absolutely okay. What is not okay is to bring children into the world through rape, through abuse, through hate, through a decision to bring in beings that are going to be used and abused in ways that are not of God's loving ways. But God does not, this is what you have to understand from the Course in Miracles, does not punish anybody who plays in the lower dimensions, because we are creators and we can create that. But when you begin to see, you know what, there is another way. Instead of creating through fear and through limitation and through suffering, we can co-create through love and expansion and joy and peace and collaboration. So that is such an important part of the Course in Miracles. There is no point in looking back and blaming anybody, but we must look back and say, okay, this is how this happened. So the mind can logically see, because we think linearly in this third dimension, we can see, okay, this is what has happened. And every time that we give our power away and governments take over and kings take over, well, we always end up in the same place. It's never a good thing. So we are yet again facing the same thing, where a few think that they know more than the many, that they know better for the many, that they get to have their way and the many don't. We're waking up and saying, no, we don't want to do that. That is our soul coming online. Finally, we're feeling that what is natural, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Course in Miracles tells us that we have eternal life. It tells us that we are created free. We have free will to do whatever we want. And it tells us that our purpose is to be happy. And when I began to read that, I went, oh my gosh, I live in a country that has a constitution where it's been written into our documents by our founding fathers. These are people who, let's say, 250 years ago, they were ascending. They were getting away from the government telling them what to do, from the rulers dictating what they could and couldn't do. They took a risk. They went beyond the normal. They left their country. They left their continent. They sailed across the ocean, not knowing what was on the other side, no GPS to guide them, no phone to call and say, hey, what's over there on the other side? You got lunch ready for me? I'm coming in. No external information to guide them on that process. Yes, they had some maps and they understood following the stars. So they had some information, but most of it was intuition. They knew that if they wanted to experience life with liberty and freedom and to be able to be happy doing what they knew was natural for them, they needed to leave what was normal. They needed to leave the king's rule. They came over here 250 years ago to tell us that they had been inspired by God in the knowledge that all of us are created equal to experience eternal life, temporary in a physical body, and that we were free and here to pursue happiness. And you can say, but some of those people had slaves. Yes, because their consciousness was moving up out of the normal, but they still operated in a consciousness that allowed for things like slavery. 250 years ago, 2,000 years ago, God or Jesus is incarnated and tells us, love your neighbor, love God, love yourself. Simple, simple. It took almost 2,000 years for those founding fathers to love themselves enough to have the courage to say, no, I'm not going to live in the normal that we're being told is the truth over here in the kingdom of Britain. So they come here, they risk everything for liberty. Here, 250 years later, humanity around the world is saying, wait a second, we want to live our lives how we want to live our lives. We don't want a few people, especially unelected people, to tell us what it is that we can and cannot do. So here I am birthing this child, which is an expression of God coming in naturally to state, I am here. I am here to be the light of the world. And boy, does she come in and bring something so bright into this family, expands this family like God intended for love to continue to express itself. And as we are experiencing the evolution of humanity, the movement out of the illusion of separation, the illusion of limitation, and moving into the expression of who we truly are, I can't help but be totally moved by what has happened to me. I've been helping people remember the truth of who they are. This child comes in. She doesn't need to be reminded of the truth of who she is. She just needs to be totally, completely be allowed, be supported by conscious beings who know the truth of who they are. My daughter knows the truth. She doesn't fully grasp the truth as I have on my journey. She still operates with some things that are normal, but has moved out of enough of them, like to the point of having her baby at home and not pumping her baby with chemicals that are not natural, not allowing the system to dictate what is going to happen. She and her husband want to do what feels natural to them. So they're already on a trajectory out of the insanity of the ego and living more from the truth of who we are as God created us. So when we read last week, I'm going to repeat we were last week in paragraph number 9. Paragraph number 9 told us that there is an ancient hate that is passing from the world, and with it goes all hatred and all fear. Humanity is waking up, and we need to stop looking back at what was done to us. Well, we must face it. We must look at it and say, yep, I contributed to that. I bought into that as normal. I bought into the rules and the regulations. I indoctrinated my children in all of those things. I participated in what is man-made. We have to do that because that's how we begin to take our power back, is we look at what we agreed to and then take full responsibility for having indoctrinated. We're a parent. We indoctrinated our children in that. No wonder they're suffering. No wonder they're pushing back because it's not natural. And as they come in closer to the truth, they're pushing back. And we who have been here longer want them to follow the rules. And then we think we know better for them. And nothing could be further than the truth. That's why in here, it says that we are sped up on our way out of the insanity by honesty. We have to be willing to admit that we don't know it all, question what it is that we know, look at every thought, every belief that we have, everything that we're told that we have to follow in terms of rules from the outside. Those rules are made by people that we elect, that we contribute our tax dollars to. So we fund the lies that we've been indoctrinated under. And at some point, you have to be willing to say, there has to be another way. So we face the past and go, yep, this is how it happened. And then we move forward. Then we say, well, what do we prefer? So at some point, you shed the past, but you can't shed it until you see it. Because when you see it, you have to take your power back by admitting that it could only be true because you agreed with it. So then what new truth do we want to co-create? This is where we have to then align with God's will for us. We've got to realize that we've got to tap in to a source of inspiration, a source of guidance that really, truly wants what's best for us. This is not a God of fear. This is not a God of hatred. This is not a God that's going to punish anybody. It's a God that simply says, okay, like the God in the Bible to the prodigal son. Okay, you went off, you did your thing. Now, are you ready to do it this other way? It's a lot easier if you follow this way. And the son says, yes, forgive me, Father. I knew not what I was doing. And the father says, okay, you didn't know what you didn't know. Let's start fresh. Course in Miracles lays it out for us. So here in the next paragraph number 10, it says, do not look back except in honesty. We cannot look back to blame anybody. In honesty, we have to admit this is the way it was. It was normal, but it is not natural. It is natural for a baby to come out of its mother. And yes, there are complications at birth. All those things happen. And I'm grateful for the hospitals. I'm grateful for the people who've been trained in emergencies. I am so grateful for that. But that is possible because we allow for that to be true. We watch enough movies that put into the mass consciousness these ideas of emergencies and things going wrong. That's why we have to have emergency medical services. But what if we begin to align with the truth of God that says what is natural happens effortlessly? What if our consciousness, instead of filling our children's minds with fear of what could go wrong, what if our consciousness was about what could go right? What if we begin to live inside of what is natural and allow that to expand? Instead of training our minds into limitation and lack and fear, train our minds into expansion and abundance and joy. That is possible. I witnessed it because my daughter's mind was not filled with what could go wrong. She stayed in what could go right. And it did. And it absolutely did. And when things do not go the way that we want them to go, we are so trained in that, well, that's normal. No, it's not normal. We have made it normal to think small. But what is natural is to think with God, to think well-being, to think healthy. So all the people who are experiencing illnesses and suffering and mental conditions, all of that is because the mind is battling two thought systems. What is natural and wants to be free, and what is normal, conditioned into limitation, following the rules, the way things should be. And the beings that are coming to move us into the next dimension, they are not having that. They are pushing back against all of that. For many of us, we didn't begin to feel that until we were, midlife crisis. For others, maybe earlier on, you felt that as a child, something is off, and you began to study metaphysical things. You began to do crazy stuff because they were not normal, not following the rules. But the children that have been born since 1988, my daughter was born 1988, during the harmonic convergence, they came in, beings who incarnated and said, we are moving this planet forward. We are taking people out of normal and we're moving them back to natural. But to do that, you've got to know that there is a loving God, that there is something good that wants to be birthed through us, not just a child, but ideas and possibilities and so much that wants to come through us. But we have to be willing to not know it all and block it. We've got to be willing to, in curiosity, question things, but we have to get honest. We got to see what got us here, to acknowledge that we gave it power, pull our power back from it through not judging it, through going, oh, okay, it is what it is. Now you take your power back. What do you want? What do you want? But it cannot be, the new cannot be created with fear. That's from the old. It can't be created with greed. That's from the old. So we got to change our minds about money, change our minds about, safety or insecurity. We got to change our minds about all of those things because our mind was conditioned into normal by the ego. We've got to understand natural with God's will. So then it tells us, do not look back except in honesty. And when an idol tempts you, when you're tempted, oh, money's going to protect me. Oh, the government is going to take care of me. Oh, my security is from money or from having a partner or from having a house or from having this or that or the other or stuff. Then it tells you, think of this. This is a statement in A Course in Miracles. There never was a time an idol brought you anything, put the word me anything except the gift of guilt. Not one was bought except at cost of pain, nor was it ever paid by you alone. If you take an honest look, all the things that we needed to have, oh, I need to have this to be happy. We have to sacrifice our lives and make all this money to have this house, to have the security. Look at all the pain, look at all the guilt, all the time away from the family because you were so busy working to try or the dads couldn't be home, working to make the money, to buy the stuff, to have the things so that we could be safe, so we could be secure, so that we could be happy. And then you have a hurricane that blows it away, or you have the economy. You've got people greedily, selfishly running the country, making rules, laws, regulations that don't affect them, but affect the rest. And you have financial collapses, you have housing bubbles or whatever things happen. And you spent all your life trying to protect yourself, to gather money, to gather stuff, to have status, to have this, that, and the other. None of that matters. None of that matters. You could live in the woods, have have everything that you need, understand, be in touch, be in nature, know what you need, find the shelter there, find in the simplicity, God guiding you to do what is natural. And we did it. We did it like that a long time ago. We could say, oh, but we didn't have all the conveniences. But at what cost have we paid for conveniences? We have polluted our bodies with conveniences, with radiation, with chemicals, with, electronic devices that are pumping, I can't even think of the word, but radiation into us. To have fast food, we have given up natural food and gone with normal chemical filled food. There's so much that has just been activated for me with the birth of this child to honor what is natural. Thank goodness my mind has been trained into knowing the truth. So for me, the truth is what is natural. The truth is I am under no laws but God. So I don't fear whatever anybody else is attempting, because I don't have idols outside of myself anymore. And it tells us in here, when you're tempted by an idol, just say, hey, remember, no idol, nothing external has ever brought me happiness. It's only brought me guilt. It's only brought me suffering. It's only brought me fear. Then it goes on to say, be merciful unto your brother then. Be merciful to these people that attempt to control us, that attempt to tell us how things should be for us to be okay. They don't know what they don't know. There's no point in blaming the president or the World Health Organization. They really are operating in delusion. They don't know. If they knew the truth, they'd be living by the truth. But we who train our minds to remember truth, we need to begin to see them, to look at the past in honesty. Okay, I used to believe what you said about all the vaccines that I was supposed to take. I used to trust that you knew better than me, but now I know better. I'm accessing the natural intelligence that's already in me, because if I am made of the energy of God, the energy of love, what lesson chapter we're on, Natalia? We're on chapter 30. We are not in a lesson. We are chapter 30 in the text, and we are in the section is number 5, the only purpose, and in paragraph number 10. So we have to look back and see what has happened, take responsibility, because in responsibility, we say, yes, I had power to create that. Now I'm going to use my power to co-create something different. So I'm not going to blame the past. I'm going to be merciful upon my brothers. And sentence number 6 says, and do not choose an idol thoughtlessly, remembering that he will pay the cost as well as you. I'm not going to say, I'm going to make, a new president. We're going to vote for a new president, which I will vote for a new president, but I'm not making him in charge of my freedom, in charge of my safety, in charge of anything for me. He's not my savior. I have saved myself from my own insanity by going to the source of truth. And going to the source of truth, I can see the role that this new president is going to play. Like I can see the role of the midwife instead of the medical system having to go to, a medically trained OBGYN to do things the way that the pharmaceutical world has taught us is normal. And so I don't have to have a savior outside of me in the medical field, in the political field, in the religious field. I don't need the Pope to give me the opportunity to have eternal life. I don't need anybody outside of me, because to put them responsible for my success is to then blame them for when it doesn't happen, because it cannot succeed with the way of the ego. The way of the ego is designed to go into contraction and dissolving. It's going to all collapse on itself. It's collapsing on itself because there's no room for expansion. To expand requires love, collaboration, co-creation, and a desire for the greater good for all. When it is only for the greater good for me or a few of my buddies, that does not work. For a little while, it has the illusion of working, because when people are in their ignorance and not unwillingness to look at things honestly and accept our participation in the very thing that is hurting us, we don't want to admit that we did that to ourselves, but it's in admitting that we contributed that we take our power back and say, now what do I want? Then it goes on to say that for he will be delayed when you look back, and you will not perceive whose loving hand you hold. While we're busy blaming other people for what we don't get, we cannot see the hand that is holding us. We read in last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, that this was in paragraph number 8, within your hand is everything you need to walk with perfect confidence away from fear forever, and to go straight on and quickly reach the gate of heaven itself. We have at our disposal the ability to connect with God, to hear God's will for us. And it's always going to be good. God and good are pretty much the same word, the same thing. God has an extra O, or good has an extra O, because it's really good when you know God. And God is good. And all that is available to us, waiting for us in this new earth, can only be experienced by those who believe that we deserve that, because that is what is natural to us. So the distinction between natural and normal, we have to be willing to look into it. And we have to be willing to admit with honesty that we bought into normal, and normal wasn't necessarily good. Not in the long run, maybe short term. So look forward, still in paragraph 10, sentence number 8. Look forward then in confidence, walk with a happy heart that beats in hope and does not pound in fear. If you are experiencing any kind of fear about moving forward and not being afraid of not having money, not being afraid of not being safe or getting illnesses and things like that, then you don't fully trust. And we have to get honest about where we are not trusting that it is natural to experience life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That health, well-being is natural. But a body that has been filled with poison, that has been drinking poison water, breathing poisoned air, receiving poisoned food, all because we wanted conveniences, all because it was normal. We've got to admit that we bought into that, and now we don't want it anymore. Because see, it's when we decide, I don't want that we are prepared for what do we want instead. But most people want this, but don't want to admit that they created what they don't want. They participated, we funded it, we accepted it. And it's in that honesty that we look back and say, yep, that's what I believed in. No more. This is what I prefer instead. And if this is what you prefer instead, you must trust that it is going to show up. See, most of us can't believe that we're going to have, eternal life, and we're going to have well-being, and all of our needs are going to be taken care of, because we've been trained. Well, you need $2,500 a month to be okay. You need to pay the mortgage. And so we've created a small amount of money that we have settled for. Well, this is what we are supposed to receive. Well, then you're tied to the old. In the new, you got to trust that you will have what you need when you need it. And don't put a specific amount on it. You don't limit yourself to those things that are normal. You move into what is natural, and it's that you create your own reality. This little Ellie knew she was coming into a world of limitations, but she was coming in to move us into expansion, because chose a family that's not buying into smallness. And they started by showing her that they were not buying into this whole idea that's normal, that children are born in a hospital, in a sterile environment, and they know what's best. This little girl came through a portal of love in a place where what's more natural than being born at home, in mother's own bedroom, father's own bedroom. It's absolutely so beautiful. So we go on to the next paragraph number 11. The will of God forever lies in those whose hands are joined. The will of God forever lies in those whose hands are joined. Thank you for joining with me as we join with Jesus in accepting these truths, as we train our mind to not think small, to think expansive, as we train our mind to accept what is natural. We're moving away from normal. Fuck normal. You make it when you make a decision that you are not going to live the way that normal is supposed to be, you are literally saying yes to the supernatural. You're literally saying yes to Jesus 2,000 years ago telling us, greater works than I will you do. Our founding fathers 250 years ago, risking everything. Every single one of them lost everything because they were persecuted for giving us this opportunity to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, those who they had been idols, the heads of the church, the heads of the government, they didn't like that one bit. Because see, when you operate from what is natural, you don't need to give a cut of anything to anybody else. You willingly share, but you don't have to give it in fear that if you don't pay it, you're going to end up in jail. That doesn't happen. When we operate in natural, we connect in such an expansive, loving way where you share, where you are willing to take care of others because they're your brothers and sisters. You know the oneness because you know the truth of who we are. That's what's so beautiful. So we join our hands together, but our minds have to be joined equally in the truth of who we are, so that we don't make normal that powers outside of us. We naturally move to the power that's within us. And from there, we are loving and supportive of one another. Until they are joined, they thought he was their enemy, because we were taught God is up there and is going to punish you. If you don't do things the right way, well, you're going to go to hell. And of course, we were pretty much in every single religion taught to fear God. So God was our enemy from the get-go. So we've got to question our thoughts about God, as we have to question our thoughts about everything. But when they joined and shared a purpose, they were free to learn their will is one. Deep within, I know that Ellie came through, as did Ryder, as did my daughter, as did you and me, knowing that we wanted to experience life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is innate. I've never once seen my little grandson, who's almost 3 years old, want bondage, be worried about getting sick, be concerned about how much money he's going to make, be worried about what career he's going to have. He is just having fun in the moment, which is why I had to come here. I had to have him as my teacher this past year to really reset me in what matters more than anything. So that when Ellie came around and she chose, this is scripted. I believe in, and we have beautiful contracts before we're born, that she was going to come exactly as she did. And I would be the one who would be the first one to hold her, so that my heart could just open up and I could speak to the truth of who we are. Because see, I have no fear of speaking the truth that we're all magnificent. I have no fear of telling somebody, you don't have to listen to what the government says. The government is made up by you. Stop giving them power and you are free. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is what Jesus wanted us to understand was available to us at a time when the Pharisees, those rulers, those rabbis or whatever who was in charge, the emperors from Rome, whatever, they didn't want people to be free. They wanted people to be in bondage and pay their money and stay in fear to follow what the king wanted them to do. The king got to live a cushy life, but everybody else didn't. The slaves, the people at the bottom, so the 1% got to have what they want. That's still happening today. And we fund that and we participate in that because it's normal. It is not natural. What is natural is that we're all equal. And when we join in that equality, when we join in that truth, the old dissolves because there's nothing funding it. There's nothing feeding it. So we have to learn that our will is one, but we can't get to the will that we have while we are busy with our fears, while we're busy trying to take care of, protect me. How many of us really spend time concerned about, does our neighbor have enough food? When we're busy about, okay, did I go to the theater? Did I get my paycheck? Did I get more money in my IRA? Me. I know I did. I know I lived my life worrying about me and what was best for my small little group. I wasn't caring about the neighbors. And if a neighbor lost their house, I didn't call with concern. What can I do to help you? Why don't you come and stay in my house? I didn't do that because we're trained that normal is everybody takes care of themselves. And if they lose their house, well, they did something wrong. They are a failure. But how can we fail when we are all created equal? We just misuse our power. Course in Miracles made it really clear. You've been misusing your power. Don't blame yourself. No need for guilt and shame. Turn things around. Turn things around. Learn the truth and live from it. And then in the next sentence, number 4, and thus the will of God must reach to their awareness. Sentence number 5, the last one in that paragraph. Nor can they forget for long that it is but their own. The will of God is our will, that we experience life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The will of God is that we live our lives from a natural state of knowing not only our perfection, born that way, but that anything that shows up as a limitation is just an opportunity for us to either look at it with the ego and go into fear and shame and guilt and make ourselves wrong, or to look at it with God. And to look at it with God sometimes requires that we connect with other people that maybe trust God more than we do. That's why we have teachers. That's why we listen to others. That's why I went to the Course in Miracles, because on my own, I didn't feel I had that information. But when I connected with Jesus and I received it through the Course, or I received it when I connected and received guidance directly and opened myself humbly to, you know more than I do. Did the illusions of separation, did the illusions of unawareness begin to break down? But I had to be willing to face my fears. I had to realize when my son was doing drugs and he was 14 years old, that I couldn't keep seeing him as my son. I had to see him as my brother. I had to see him as powerful on his own journey, doing his own thing. And when I began to see him that way, then he began to feel, what? I am powerful? You mean you're not my mom and tell me what to do? It was very shocking to him when I said, no, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm no longer deluded into thinking I know better. You know what is best. And if you want to kill yourself, then I'm going to respect that. If you want to overdose and go through that process, I'm going to respect that. And then he's going, wait a second, my mom is saying I can kill myself? I can overdose? That I'm using my power to do that? And then he had an epiphany. Wow. Then if I'm the one who puts the drugs in my mouth, if I'm the one who chooses these thoughts, then I guess I do have power. Then it's not my mom who has power over me. And until we see each other as powerful creators, co-creators of our life experience, we're not going to honestly look back and see how we got trained into disempowerment in order for us to take our power back. We've got to be willing to see everybody as already naturally powerful. And instead of being afraid of what they're going to do wrong and how it's going to affect me and how it's going to affect their lives, go, well, if that's what you want to do, then that's what you get to do. Because until we see each other as powerful, we are operating from the ego in disempowerment. Oh, please don't do that so that I don't suffer. Oh, please don't do that so that, you'll have a better life. How do you know what it's a better life? We don't know what anything is for. But living in this fear that we're trying to control things, we live very small lives. We live disconnected from the truth of our power. We live attempting to control others so that we get to be okay. That's not love. And that's not going to make us happy because it doesn't honor the liberty that each of us has as eternal beings that we are. That life that we have is borrowed for a temporary period of time. And if we want to misuse it to create suffering, that's okay. Everybody gets to do whatever they want to do. We are the children of a creative source who created us to create. If we want to miscreate, that's okay. God's not going to punish us. So why are we punishing each other? Why are we guilting each other? Why are we shaming each other? Instead, our opportunity here is to birth something new that is natural. We're all powerful and creative. And if we want to create suffering, if we want to create killing ourselves, if we want to create limitation, if we want to create being in a miserable marriage, if we want to create being in a miserable job, if we want to create whatever it is, then we can. And we say, good for you for using your power that way. And when you get tired of that, if you want to know about another way, let me know. When you're ready, let me know. But until then, you do what you do, and I'll do me. And then you live your life as an example of one who is happy, one who has connected with God, doing God's will. And then you become a lighthouse in this world that is so full of darkness. And it's only dark because people block their own light. But when you shine your light, they go, my gosh, look at her light. How can I have that light too? well, you can't get your light from me. You have your light in you. All I can do is shine mine and help you see that it really is very easy to get your light shining brightly. Stop blocking it. Stop blocking it with lies. Stop blocking it with what's normal. Come back to the place that is natural to you. Come back and become like a little child. Go to the place where you dream about what you desire. And when you start giving your dreams, when you start looking forward and you start giving your dreams a voice and you start speaking with others about how wonderful will it be when we live in a world where we co-create, where we connect with one another. You know, I created a Facebook group called Happy Dream Creators. That's all we do. When we come together every other week on Wednesday nights, and any of you can participate, we come to imagine the new. We don't come to talk about anything old. That ship sailed long time ago. We're done with that. We come to hold the vibration of the new, honoring that each and every one of us is the bringers of love and light, honoring that there's nothing wrong in the world. Absolutely nothing wrong. Everybody's living out what they believe that they want to experience. But there's wrong thinking that creates suffering, and then there's right thinking. Not because it's right, but it's aligning with God's will. And when we align with God's will, all of us want life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Ellie came into this world because she wants to experience a temporary life here for a period of time in an incarnation, free to be herself. And that is what's going to help her be happy. So thank you for being part of this today. If anybody wants to unmute and share anything, great. If not, we will connect next week, share this with others, and help me spread the word about the magnificence of what's possible when we understand the truth of who we are, our true nature, and we make that our new normal. I love you all so much. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.